This week, I thought it would be cool to try a device pairing that I actually haven't used very much, which is the Ableton Push in controller mode, controlling live on my PC behind me, and the Kontrol Mark III from Native Instruments, which was provided by Native Instruments. I paid for the standalone push myself, but Native Instruments did give me this Kontrol 61 Mark III. Now, the reason I thought that this setup would be interesting is because in some ways it comes closest to replicating something that this Mark III can't do, which is working with Machine. Right now, the Machine and the Kontrol Mark III do not really talk to each other. You can use it as like a default MIDI controller and it'll actually look like this right now. But if I go to add a new plugin here on the push, and I go to plugins, VST3, Native Instruments, and Complete Kontrol, and load that up. Loading up Complete Kontrol, and sometimes this happens, oh, there we go, it's here. We now have access to all of these plugins and this whole interface for Complete Kontrol on the Kontrol Mark III. This is something you can't do on the current configurations of Machine, which for a lot of people is kind of a deal breaker, and I understand that. And so something that's cool about this is if you're an Ableton user, this kind of gives you the best of both worlds, because while I have Complete Kontrol right here, I could go to, say, this track and add a device, go to Sounds, let's try Pad. And now, while the control screen is not showing me anything I can really use here, I have all of the parameter controls here on the push. Let me make sure the screen and the LEDs are bright enough here. Yeah, screen's good. Okay, good. So I've got control of any Ableton device on the push, and then back here on the Complete Kontrol, or just Kontrol now, Mark III, I can load up, let's say, CS80. CS80 V4 is one of the Arturia V Collection plugins that's been updated to support the new NKS. NKS is essentially the platform that Native Instruments supports and that third-party developers can use to show different details and parameters on the Complete Kontrol, or the Kontrol Mark III as seen here. One of the cool things about CS80 is that, like the original hardware, it supports polyphonic aftertouch, which is one of the newer features, or one of the new features of the Kontrol Mark III. The sound's not very good, but it shows you what I'm doing here, right? Every note has individual aftertouch parameter control, which is pretty cool. And so this hardware configuration is super overkill because, like I said, this is the standalone push. You do not need the standalone push to do this. You can get the controller push 3, or push as they call it. That gives you the audio interface, that gives you MPE. Everything I'm doing here is what a controller would do because it's plugged into my desktop right here. The push 3 is plugged into the desktop. The control is plugged into the desktop, and it has additional hardware going, although I think that's just because I chose the wrong port. I'm using an A to C cable. If I was running a direct C to C cable to the desktop, it wouldn't need the additional power. This setup, as far as why I decided to use it, kind of came about because I wanted a way to face out and look out through my window, but my whole computer setup is over here because I work from home 2 days a week as well. And I don't really like having my whole desk setup facing out towards the window because then you get the sun directly in your face and all that, yada yada. But because I don't have a powerful laptop, or any laptop right now, that can run Ableton and that can run Native Instruments plugins, still really hoping that someday the iPad will get support for Native Instruments plugins and maybe even a full version of Ableton. All this could be on an iPad. But my guess is if that happens, we're probably 5 years out from that being reality. So in the meantime, I was like, well, I kind of want to buy a laptop, right? Because then I'd be able to use it anywhere. And I realized, that's stupid. My desktop's very powerful. Let's just figure out a way to use everything as though it was hardware, even though it's actually software. And so for the last few days, I've been testing this setup together. Originally, I used my Launchpad Pro, but then I realized there's so much more control and visibility here, and you get the built-in audio interface with the push And that's where I really saw how these could be awesome together. And so let's see, for $1,000 plus, I think this is $800, so $1,800, you can get MIDI controllers that basically give you full control of Ableton and the NKS plugins. And that's pretty expensive, I'm not gonna lie. Obviously there's cheaper gear on the market, obviously there's more expensive gear on the market, and this is all just MIDI control. Although my Push is standalone, the way the Kontrol Mark III works, it's only gonna work with Ableton in controller mode because it needs to run a third-party plugin called Complete Control or Kontakt 7. Kontakt will also run this with all the screen features, etc. But I don't think you get the play assist and stuff like that with just Kontakt. I could be wrong though. That is a lot of talking to say that I think the setup's really cool, but it is obviously a pretty expensive setup. The point of it would essentially be if you have a lot of plugins that are both Ableton sounds and Native Instruments or Arturia sounds, you want the feeling of controlling hardware, but you want the power of the software that you have. I don't know if I would tell someone to go out and buy all of this stuff if they didn't have any of it. This is kind of a natural extension of the fact I already had Ableton Suite. I already had a copy of Complete 11. I'm actually not sure which version of Complete we're on. We might be on like 14. Basically, I had a version of Complete, the select version, I upgraded it to the normal version, and then eventually Native Instruments gave me the ultimate version of the next one. So again, full disclosure there. There's definitely some bias here. I talk about this in the videos where I talk about Native Instruments stuff, especially this keyboard, because they gave it to me and because I was already a user of their software and I'm like chill with McBenjamins and Native Instruments, like I'm gonna have probably a different bias from someone else. So full disclosure there. The Push, on the other hand, completely out of pocket, never gotten anything from Ableton, never actually talked to that team, but I like what they make. So I've got this as well. And really, the Push is probably my favorite current, this type of device, especially in controller mode, but even really in standalone. I think it's just a generational leap ahead of the Force, ahead of the Machine Plus, the MPCs to a degree. But speaking of the MPCs, like I said, this is $1,800, right? I have seen the MPC key go as low as $1,500. And if you got the MPC Key 61, you could kind of have both of these in one device. Now, to be totally clear, I don't think the sound quality of the plugins on the MPCs comes anywhere close to what I can get from all of this. I also think I have a lot more variety, and the MPE pads are really nice on this device. But as an alternative workflow, if you wanted fully standalone, or you could use the MPC key in controller mode as well, you could get an MPC key and kind of condense this. But frankly, I do kind of like the variety and the power I get from this combined setup. So that said, I've talked your ear off a bit. Let's just mess around and try to make something here. First, I'll actually load something I made yesterday. You know what? I think I have to load it on the desktop. I could be wrong, but I'm just gonna do it that way because it's quicker. Okay, so yesterday I was working on this little beat thing, and I'm using both NKS Complete Control plugin stuff and Ableton plugin stuff. Bit of a load time on there. My computer's generally pretty fast, but I guess this is a mildly complex setup. So this track has an Ableton plugin here, a Phoenix Keys or Electric Keys Phoenix from Native Instruments. This preset's called Phase Fields, which is really pretty. This is a DX7 NKS, so this is Arturia through Complete Control, and then I added Valhalla Vintage Verb as an effect on the chain. This is a battery drum kit, and one of the cool things about loading battery kits in Complete Control is you get the color mapping for what type of sound is what. So like red, kick drum, snare drum, these teal is hi-hats. So you basically just get a good window of like what you're doing. Now, what you don't get is that same thing on the pads of the Push. You can play them, especially if you go into a chromatic keyboard, but you don't have that same like color coding you would have on a machine integration. So kind of not quite as tight of an integration, but it's still pretty cool. Like you can go to battery, you can look at all of the different packs you might have. So I found this one in Faded Reels, and then I just chose the beautiful kit there, and then I'm in the plugin. Next up, we've got, let's get out of scales here. I loaded up an MPE sound because I wanted to play with one of those, special features of the Push 3, which is full MPE control. And it has a few pretty cool MPE enabled sounds built in. or Ableton rather, has MPE presets and sounds they've made. And so I thought it'd be cool to add some MPE to kind of show what you could do with these two things together that you couldn't do on other gear or each one of these by themselves. And then, yeah, this is just an Ableton bass I used as well. And I believe that's it as far as there's just 6 sounds here. And I'll play you the little loop I made. If you notice any clipping there, I haven't actually mixed this down, so the master channel is clipping right now in this project because it's just a real rough sketch. But hopefully it kind of shows the variety of sounds here. And when I talk about that sound quality, I'm really talking about those keys and those pads. You can load the same drum kit, you can convert machine expansions into MPC expansions, like MPC kits, which I've done. And so almost all, if not all of my machine expansions I have is MPC drum kits as well. So that's like a 1-for-1. You can get those same sounds on the MPC, but some of these plugins like the Complete Control, the Phoenix keys, this DX7 with the reverb, you could get close actually. I think you could use some of the MPC plugins to get close to this. But this MPE sound you just simply can't get with this level of control. And there's a lot of MPE sounds. There will be more MPE plugins in the future. You can actually control Arturia pigments with MPE. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of power here. As far as is it worth your money, that's always going to be dependent on what your income is, what your budget is, what your other expenses are. But for me, this really does kind of feel like the current peak of controllers mixing with software to kind of get the best of what feels like hardware and software. I don't think anyone is perfect right now, and there are definitely good arguments for other setups. But right now, I am very impressed with these two things. Like, if you asked me 5 years ago what would my dream setup would be, it would basically be like either this or a really intuitive version of Ableton running on an iPad, which Logic on iPad is very close to. If you were somehow able to bring all that together, right? If I could get all of this to run off of my M2 iPad Pro, that would be the dream. But again, I think that's 5 years out. So anyway, like I said, I talked a lot and then I just kept talking, but let's make some music. So we go project, new set. We're not gonna save this. Let's see if that worked. It did. Okay, cool. So we're gonna add a plugin, like I said. We're gonna load native instruments, complete control. Should populate here on the keyboard. There we go. Let's try augmented strings from Arturia. Okay. You can see we actually have controls of augmented strings here, so it doesn't have a pretty graphic though. It hasn't been updated to the latest version, but it does have the edit window and the ability to change different parameters like this, which is new for the Mark III, I believe. Let's add an Ableton effect on top of this. So we'll go audio effects, auto filter. metronome on. That's trash. All right. Nah. Okay, I think I can do this. Fixed length is 8 bars. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, that was just 4 bars, huh? Yeah, let's do it. Let's make that just a 4-bar loop then. I don't hate that. Let's add some Ableton drums. We'll use a pack. Let's go build and drop drums. No, not build and drop. Drive and glow. Oh yeah, that's gonna work for me. It's a garbage fire. All right, quantizing 70%. That's horrible. I'm gonna level with you. This is kind of a trash fire so far, but we're gonna keep going. Because that's what we do here. We run into the trash fire. All right, new MIDI track, plugins, VST3, complete control. I don't like how long this takes, but I bet if I favorited this, is that something I can do? I don't remember how to do that. Yeah, whatever. Can I make it favorites? Yeah. Okay. Actually, I'm curious about that now. So if I were to now, because I favorited this, go MIDI track, collections, favorites, complete control. Ooh, yeah, okay, that's better. All right. Let's get some October's very own drums in there. Sorry, 40's very own. I associate 40 so much with OVO that I confuse the two. Okay. So now when we load this, we should get, here we go, this little color cheat code for what keys are which. Let's try it. Let's do fixed length, 4 bars. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is still bad, but I'm gonna keep going. Why not? Device, sounds, let's get a bass. Oh no! It turned my drums into that bass. 1 second. Gotta go, new MIDI track, bass. Sorry, new MIDI track sounds, bass. All right, that should be good. Let's lower the volume of everything. We're definitely clipping. Yeah, I can do that. Fixed length, 8 bars, 1, 2, 3, 4. No, I can't. I like confidently, yes, I can do this. Immediately misses. Kind of love it. 2, 3, 4. Those drums are so bad, dude. There's like something in the drums that are just like... You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna just make that drum clip 4 bars, and I think that might fix it. Yeah, okay. Like, it's not perfect, don't get me wrong, it's still got problems, but... New MIDI track. I keep wanting to use that jog wheel. Alright. Right. Favorites. Complete control. Yeah. That's nice. Nah. Don't hate that. see that automation is actually recording, which is cool. And we can see, actually, I noticed this when I mess with a parameter, it actually does start showing it on the push as well, which is kind of cool. All right, shift. And I will be honest, I really do prefer the sort of like almost skeuomorphic, but just more detailed sort of user interface design that the Native Instruments team does versus the kind of almost like glyph-based, not inscrutable, it's readable, it's just very minimal and numerical interface of the push. So it is actually kind of cool to have both. Like I said, not every single plugin supports this interface yet, although almost all of these do. Augmented strings, for example, you get the knobs, you get the edit functionality, but you don't get a graphic. The graphics aren't the end-all be-all. A lot of people probably think the graphics are a waste of time. I actually really like the graphics. I think they make this feel like you're really touching the software more, as kind of cheesy as that might sound. I really do like them, and I do actually think they're worthwhile. And it would probably waste processors, so I'm sure they won't do it, but I would actually love it if they moved. If there was actually like video elements to it, or even just like GIFs, I actually think that would be kind of cool too, but that could be overkill. I am excited to see how they expand on this. I think for some final thoughts, one thing I will say is like, it's still kind of early days for both of these platforms. This is still the first year, I believe, for both the Push 3 and definitely for the Kontrol Mark 3. And so I'm hopeful that we'll see more plugins support NKS. I'm hopeful that we'll get more and more features added to the Push. As far as what they can do now, I think they're both really powerful platforms, and I like them both. And I think they work really well together. If you're a machine user who feels left behind, I absolutely feel you, and I think that's a really valid complaint. I'm hopeful they add machine support in the future. I'm very curious what a next generation machine would even look like, and if a combination of a next generation machine and this would be similar, better, worse, unclear. But right now, this feels like the most futuristic hardware MIDI controller software setup, at least that I have my hands on. What are your thoughts on this? Is this dumb? I mean, I don't think the song I made properly showcases, or like the little loop thing I just made really showcases the power of this. It's just more kind of showing the workflow and messing around. But I think this is a pretty cool setup. I think it's pretty rad, and it's expensive. I mean, I guess both of these, plus the computer behind it, plus the software, plus complete, I mean, yeah, that's a lot of money, man. Sometimes I don't see it all at once because I built up a lot of that collection myself. Like I bought the computer myself, I bought Ableton, and then I upgraded. I bought Ableton as a student, so I got a student discount, and then I upgraded to Suite. I do recommend buying stuff on sales. That's how I always do it. But like I said, this keyboard is sent for free, and some of the complete plugins were included in a bundle they gave me for the complete upgrade. I already had a version of complete, but they gave me another version. And so, yeah, some of this stuff I didn't have to pay for, which is really important. But I will say the majority of the expensive part of all of this, I did pay for myself. And no regrets. Also, I will say if you're really struggling with like gear acquisition syndrome stuff, I've talked about this a long time ago in a video where I got rid of all of my DAWless gear, which I've obviously turned around on, and now I definitely have some DAWless gear. But I do find using controllers like this that integrate well with software is a really good way to get over gas. Like I just have a DX7 in here if I want, right? Like I just, new track, device, oh, we're gonna want MIDI track actually, sorry. New MIDI track, go to favorites, complete control, go down here. Let's see, because I have the V collection, which I did pay for, although I think they gave me, Native Instruments gave me a more recent version of the V collection, but I did already have the V collection. Just load up a 4-operator bass, and now I've got a DX7 on here. You can edit a bunch of parameters. I don't know how much I would want to program this way, to be honest. The DX7 is maybe one of the worst examples. A lot of other subtractive synths will be way easier to actually do sound design with on here. But I do think this new edit methodology is really cool and gives you a lot more access to parameters in a not clunky way compared to the older versions of the complete control. Anyway, I could talk about this forever. If you do have any specific questions about this, please let me know in the comments below. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video soon. I hope you had a great week. I hope you have a great week ahead. And if you would consider checking out my music, I'd really appreciate it. And thank you so much to everyone who has checked out my music on Spotify, Apple Music, and to everyone who likes and subscribes and comments. It really does mean a lot. Okay, I will not shut up if I don't stop talking. So I'll see you soon. Bye.